Well, as you know, Tom Hanks, I've trained real hard for this, and I hope I get to go to the moon. Hey, don't forget me, Kevin Bacon. How could I forget about you? I'm Gary Sinise.
This is great. Keep going.
Oh, what's that? I can't go to the moon? Oh, good golly. I hope they go to the moon safely. Let me watch the TV. Wait, it's not on any of these channels. I don't understand what's happening. NBC, why aren't the moon people on the TV? I'm Gary Sinise. Oh, well, Mr. Sinise, you don't get ratings, and you're not pulling in numbers. Also, let's listen to Spirit in the Sky in space. All right, that's all I can subject them to. Let's start the show!
Welcome to Cordkillers. Our mission will eventually be to summarize major motion pictures, but for now, it's still to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you have the information you need to be able to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on whatever device you want. Movie summarizer extraordinaire Brian Brushwood. I am Tom Merritt.
Hey, Tom Merritt. I'm Brian Brushwood. But more importantly, that is a snippet from 2 weeks ago on Night Attack that recently ICU made into an actual 3-minute synopsis of me on the spot being challenged by everyone else on Night Attack to portray all of Apollo 13 to the best of my knowledge. Sort of like drunk history, only more ignorant and also about history.
About a movie about history. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Drunk movie history. I like it.
No, it was. I think I acquitted myself pretty well. Worth
You did a
seeing.
good job.
If you search for,
hey, we got a Bitly.
Bitly what?
Bit.ly/around the moon.
Around the moon. There we go. Check it out.
Around the moon. Also joining us today, very happy to welcome back to the show from Engadget, Ms. Nicole Lee. How are you?
Hi, how are you guys doing? That was very impressive. I thought I was enwrapped. I was wrapped.
I got to admit, my biggest flaw on that one was 3/4 of the way through the movie, the two characters turn to each other and say, "Wait a minute, isn't Bill Paxton in this shuttle too?" I forgot him as well.
Oscar-winning performance from Brian Brushwood. All right, we got lots of stuff to talk about, including Lord of the Rings, Roku's earnings, and Disney. Let's start with the primary target. So let me set the table for you. Bob Iger was throwing down at the Disney earnings call, not just about earnings. We're not going to talk about the numbers. We're going to talk about the fact that he said he promises you. He promises you from his heart. We're not his words at all. That ESPN Plus will launch spring 2018. So by June, you'll be able to pay for a standalone ESPN. Now, Iger said the new app will let users, and here I'm going to quote, stream our channels on an authenticated basis and subscribe to ESPN Plus for additional sports coverage, including thousands of live sporting events. So it sounds like, before we get into the rest of the Disney announcements that are non-ESPN related, it sounds like, Brian, he's saying, we'll have an ESPN Plus service. We'll have a separate app for it. If you're in that app and you subscribe to ESPN from cable or PlayStation View, you'll be able to just watch it all in one app.
Yeah, this makes sense. What was the acquisition we were talking about the other day about, it was a bunch of Fox stuff, right?
There was the rumor that Fox and Disney were talking about Disney acquiring Fox's movie and cable channels as well as their television production,
right,
but specifically not Fox Sports.
Exactly, specifically not Fox Sports. So it's like this makes sense, and it also makes sense that Disney, as our next story will bring under the spotlight, Disney is about to launch some kind of service. It makes sense that they would not mash up all their kids' programming with their sports programming and that it would splinter off. I mean, all of this makes sense to me, but then again, I'm not much of a sports person.
Well, I'm asking the wrong guy here. Nicole, What do you think of this?
I think, have they said how much it is?
No, they haven't announced a price yet either.
Okay. I think that would be a very important question. Obviously, will people be willing to pay, I don't know, how many dollars, $10 a month maybe, for a cable-free ESPN? I think they would. I mean, we've talked forever on how sports is like the holy grail or something of cord cutters. Like that seems to be the conventional wisdom anyway. And And I think we're seeing, you can go through a PS View or a Sling or whatever, one of those sort of cable-ish services to get ESPN. But this way you don't have to, right? You can just say, hey, I only want ESPN.
Except
and I only want...
Keep in mind, close attention. He said, stream our channels on an authenticated basis.
Yeah.
That means you have to have a subscription to Sling or PlayStation View or something to see those channels. ESPN Plus will be news stuff that isn't on the cable channels.
That's why it's weird.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's why it's like, okay.
Yeah, I guess to clarify my earlier statement, I was mainly thinking of the decision to keep it separate from all of the other quote unquote Disney programming. As far as like whether this is an offering that's going to make a lot of sense and keep a lot of people in cable, my guess is they have smarter people than me working on those decisions to figure out that calculus.
All right, let's go to two of three announcements. Disney also said it's going to launch its Disney app and service in 2019. Bob Iger said it will be cheaper than Netflix with fewer titles, but from Disney's top-level properties. He said pricing could reflect volume over time, so he might raise the price over time, but it's going to start cheaper than Netflix. And even though it's going to have fewer titles, it will have original shows made specifically for the service, including a live-action Star Wars show, a Marvel show, a Monsters Inc. show, and Monsters Inc. show, and one based on High School Musical. So big properties, big name shows. Disney's also going to make 4 to 5 films a year specifically for the new service. Now, if I followed my pattern here, I'd ask Nicole about the kids stuff, not Brian, who has 3 daughters. But we'll start with Brian.
Yeah, man. Spoiler alert. This one is, even if it costs more than Netflix right out of the gate, which it won't, I'm totally down for the ability to have curated Disney content all in one place without piecemealing and like, oh, I want to see this thing and that thing. The more complete this back catalog is, the happier I am and the more instant a win this is.
And my guess it gets more complete over time as they get the rights back. It's probably that Hulu has some rights right now. Netflix has some rights right now. Like they're going to add to it as time goes on and maybe, I don't know, put those things in tiers and say, okay, if you're at $5.99, you still get everything you used to. But if you want the classics section, you're going to have to pay $10.99.
Yep. I'm in on all the 99s, no matter what.
Nicole, are you in on all the 99s?
Have they? I mean, I may be a little behind on this news, but have they said that they're going to be not showing any of this stuff on Netflix anymore, or not going to be showing any of this?
Yeah, that whole catalog, all of that crossover catalog from Netflix is set to expire, and it's not going to be renewed. And in fact, there are articles out.
2019.
Yeah.
This is going to be a question for me. I think this might be related to the Star Trek question, I guess. Do you really want that show that much in order to pay the money for it? Do I really want to watch those shows that much in order to pay the money for it? I don't have kids, so I don't
see, and it's different. For me. It's like specifically.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It is astonishing what you will pay for a few minutes of peace and quiet. Reliably a few minutes of peace and quiet. Because keep in mind, that back catalog, that's part of the seductive nature of that whole Disney Channel sitcom stuff, is like once the kids start that, they just get in the loop and they go through the whole thing and you don't have to worry about them and they leave you alone and you can play your Hearthstone.
The way I think this is going, I'm not sure what's going to happen with the cable replacement services like Sling TV and DirecTV Now and YouTube TV. I'm unclear what's going to happen with those. But on the Netflix, Hulu, CBS All Access side, there's going to be a maximum number that can survive in the market. And we're going to find out what that is. And the fight right now is to build up a service to the point that you are safely in the region that can survive. And Disney's got a strong offering for that.
Well, and that's a way to die. I think you're right. I think you're exactly right. There's going to be a period. We are at the tail end of balkanization, and now there's going to be consolidation. I don't say now. Let's say starting next year or 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. But it certainly makes sense for them to use their leverage and to strike while the iron's hot. And chaos is a ladder, as Bob Iger said in that earnings report shortly before murdering someone.
As far as we know, Bob Iger has never murdered anyone. That was merely humor, Mr. Iger. Please don't shut us down. Third out of 3, Lucasfilm announced that Rian Johnson, director of The Last Jedi, will create a new Star Wars trilogy and write and direct the first movie of it, be executive producer of all 3. The trilogy will be separate from the Skywalker saga and introduce new characters from a corner of the galaxy that Star Wars lore has never explored before. No other release dates or information. Brian, does this satisfy your itch?
Tom, this is in every way the perfect thing. The perfect sentence that I've always wanted is this trusted director who makes stories that I love is going to create a brand new trilogy with new content in the Star Wars universe. Unfortunately, Tom, I've been hearing that for so long, I've given up all hope. When the prequels came out, I was like, new stories, right? Nope, just backstories to crap you've already heard of before. Then the new sequels come out. You're like, oh, well, finally, new stories, right? Nope, it's just a retread. The first one was just a retread of A New Hope. You're like, oh, wait, Rogue One, that's definitely gonna be new stories, right? No, it's a prequel in disguise. And now you say to me the thing I want to hear most in the entire world, that I'm going to get a whole new trilogy with a non-Skywalker related claim from some backwater in the other side of the galaxy. It's too good to be true. I've seen your
candy.
How
does this go wrong then? How does this go wrong?
You know what? They've surprised me before. They've figured out brilliant new ways to disappoint me. As far as I know, I'm gonna go to the theater. They're gonna open the curtains, and it's gonna be a giant blaster aimed right at my brain, saying, "Ha! Got you again, Brushwood. This is your new story."
Well, okay. And first of all, before you start writing in, Brian and I have different opinions about The Force Awakens, so don't blast us all about retread of A New Hope. There's room for that argument
also,
on his side, okay?
As long as we're doing disclaimers, understand the reason that I'm disappointed is that I got deeply invested in the Star Wars expanded universe, which was amazing because you would see versions of like Ocean's 11 in the Star Wars universe. There's so many crazy cool stories out there.
Where I think you might have reason to worry, and this is how I read this, right? I read this press release and I was like, oh, this is what Brian wants. Brian's going to be so happy about this. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. They said introduce new characters. They said separate from the saga, but they didn't say old characters wouldn't be here. They're totally going to put Rey and Finn in these, and then Brian's going to be upset because it's going to just feel like a retread of everything else.
I actually won't mind that. If that'll just make it kissing cousins of the other stuff. I don't mind the occasional nod, but it's just like, I mean, we're coming on 30 years. Like, outside of the original trilogy, there's been, in my lifetime, not one Star Wars thing that was not about the original trilogy. Like, granted, they found, like, we finally know what's underneath Darth Vader's cape. The answer will disappoint you. But we've never had a new story in whether it's television with the specials, whether it's, Rebels, whether it's the prequels, any of that. I just want something that has nothing to do with the original series.
Nicole, how do you feel about all this?
So Brian, I'm curious, do you like the Clone Wars stuff?
The farther away the stuff I've seen, and I've not watched all of the Clone Wars, the farther away from the original trilogy we get, the happier I am. There have been a few moments during Rebels that I've just been giddy with oh, it's a heist movie. Oh, it's a, it's this, it's that. I love I just want something that's not wink, wink. It's a small universe after all. I'm ready for. What I originally fell in love with Star Wars is that it was just so big and you could get lost in any corner of it. And everything after that experience has been to remind me that it's not that big a universe after all. It's very small. You constantly are bumping into the same 5 characters, and one of them is definitely a Skywalker.
I feel like that is what I think Disney is grappling with, right? Do you want to stick to the tried and true? This is reliable. This is thing that, you can sell all the figurines based on these characters. You can build theme park rides based on these characters. Or do you do the experimental? Do you go to the expanded universe, which probably has better stories? I mean, I don't know. Probably does. But it requires a certain amount of risk taking. And hopefully, they will give Rian Johnson the amount of rope needed to do all those things. But
To hang himself. No, sorry.
I mean, I
Well.
would rather see a massive failure of a show that tried to do something different, tried to break out of it.
Yeah.
Like in some ways, I almost respect the Star Wars Holiday Special more than I've seen than the safe plays I've seen over the last 10 years. Because
Brian does like to exaggerate to make his points.
Okay, yes, but you got to admit we ain't seen nothing like the holiday special before or since.
No,
And-
that's true.
and
That's very true.
That's the kind of bold thing I would
For
like to see.
so
in this
many
world.
reasons. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And honestly, I love seeing the Skywalkers shown from different perspectives. Like I love that idea of it's a big universe, but look how these characters intersect with that. So I am not as down on some of these stories as Brian has been, but I also would adore the idea of giving me a corner, like you say, that is just not related. And I mentioned it on the show before, but my theory is they want to consolidate. They want to finish Luke's story. They want to finish that whole Skywalker saga, and they don't feel safe jumping out of it until they've given people that. And this is what it sounds like. It's like, once we're done with that, we're giving Rian Johnson the keys and telling him to drive off into a far corner. And even if it's, Rey is your link and she goes off in search of something and she's the one character that carries over, I think that's probably okay.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I mean, just as long as it feels different. Like, I don't mind if the opening scene is Rey coming to visit an old relative in an upscale copy of Coruscant, and then the rest of the movie is we watch a 16-year-old Corellian girl try to make it in space law school. Like, that would be so different. And it's all about the big speech she gives at the end up against this boffin who's a real snide punk, that one.
This week on Coruscant Legal.
Yes, I would take that in a heartbeat because it's different. Coruscant Legal.
All right, folks. One of the reasons we love doing Cordkillers is because we love watching stuff. And we love doing Spoiler in Time, our sister show, because we get to talk about all the things we've watched. We know that sometimes it's hard for you guys when you're like, hey, I wasn't watching it when you were talking about it, but I'm watching it now. I want to go back and follow what you guys were saying along with you as I'm watching it. So we have the Spoiler in Time project. The idea, if we get enough patrons, 1,850 patrons, we will go back and chop those up and make them organized and easy. So if you're going to watch The Wire, if you're going to watch Justified, if you're going to watch The Shield, you can go back and find those pieces. But we need your help to get there.
Yeah, man. Previously, up until this point, we had been targeting that 1,850 patrons. That's less than 200 new patrons that we were looking for. But we got an email from Mike who said, among other things, he says, I know we're trying to gather more patrons for a breakdown of Spoiler in Time by show. Can I just up my pledge to get us there faster? And, our goal was to have more outreach and get people who weren't patrons and get them to become patrons. But I get the impression that there are some people who have really itchy trigger fingers and want to make this happen sooner rather than later. So we're gonna amend our proclamation. It was 1,850 patrons, but we'll also take it at 1,850 per episode. So either 190 something. 192 more patrons or $350 more an episode, and we could kick this thing into gear. So if you're somebody who's loved it, who's been on the fence and annoyed that we're taking so long, you could take this into your own hands. Just up your pledge from $1 to $2 a month or $5 to $10 or whatever it is you're doing, and we can get there in no time.
Take the Mike challenge.
Yeah, Mike is challenging you.
Patreon.com/Cordkillers. All right, let's talk about how to watch. Go talk a little bit of numbers here just because they're so good. Roku had its first earnings report since going public. You can now buy Roku stock if you want. It was a good report. $124.8 million in net revenue, beating expectations and above last year's $89 million. They still are losing money because they're a young company. That's normal for a company this old, but their losses were 10 cents a share, which was better than last year's 17 cents a share for the same time period. And advertising more than doubled year over year. One of the places they're making that advertising money is on smart televisions because they're able to put those advertisements up on the operating system because the smart TV is run by Roku. Roku is the operating system. In fact, on 1 in 5 smart TVs sold in the United States, Roku is the operating system. And they just announced a partnership with Philips, which will become the 7th television brand to feature the Roku TV operating system. A few other stats here. Active accounts for the quarter totaled 16.7 million. That's up 48% year over year. So a lot of new people joining the Roku universe. Users streamed 3.8 billion hours, up 58% from the same period last year. And there's an article over on The Verge that they acquired an audio startup in September called Dynastrum, which indicates that Roku might be interested in making some new products that aren't just streaming TV, some kind of smart speaker a la the Amazon Echo, Brian.
So we've talked before about a little gem of something to remember. Convenience trumps fidelity, and I can't think of a better example to demonstrate this than what we're seeing right here. The mere fact that they've been able to position themselves as an easy way to navigate through TV menus turns out to be possibly their most significant contribution to the whole ecosystem that we have right now. They were the number one best way to stream content, but along the way, it seems like they figured out, oh wait, it's much more pleasant to be in a Roku environment than in any TV menu from any smart TV anywhere. And all of a sudden, like this TCL that we have here in studio, it's super attractive. It's easy to watch. I see the ads pop up in there. They're unobtrusive, and yet they raise my awareness of what's about to come out. I think all of their success is very well deserved, and I think I might buy a little Roku stock. How about that?
Okay, this is not a financial show, and we are not making stock recommendations. That's all I'll add to that.
I'm saying, well, first of all, truth be told, I probably won't. I'm lazy, and I like to get
also,
excited.
I'm not allowed to because I do a show called Daily Tech News Show.
Oh, got it.
This is kind of journalism, guys.
Yeah, kind of. Oh, all right.
You do whatever you want. Nicole, what about you? I feel like this really shines the light on the fact that you look at the Roku box and you're like, nah, they're getting kind of outcompeted by Apple TV and Amazon Fire TV sometimes, maybe even some Android TV. They don't care. They're making money becoming the operating system for everybody but LG and Samsung.
Well, considering that a lot of the built-in TV operating systems kind of suck, Roku is probably way better, way more user-friendly than a lot of them. For years, people have bemoaned the horrible UI of Samsung TVs or LG TVs or something, and Roku is just easy to use. It's familiar to a lot of people, and they have all of these channels now. You have so much content on there, and as you say, 1 in 5 televisions sold in the U.S. Have Roku. That's an amazing number. 1 in 5. That's really impressive. It's great.
All right, let's move on and talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
I like here to stay. It's all about location. Under surveillance.
So just a couple of months ago, people were saying Star Trek Discovery, it's going to fail. Nobody's going to get CBS All Access. Nobody's going to watch Star Trek Discovery. Well, it's renewed for a second season, and they just had their mid-season finale to almost universal applause. Even the people who didn't like the early part of the season really liked the episode that was put up yesterday. And Star Trek Discovery coming back on January 7th. So no Star Trek over the holiday break, but they are coming back with what they're calling Chapter 2 instead of the second half of Season 1. But January 7th is when it comes back.
So has your position on the show's quality changed or pivoted at all since the beginning?
Yeah, it's gotten better.
And what about your feeling about their business model? I can't remember if you were as derisive of it as I was.
My feeling about this has always been, hey, if whatever, $7 or $10, whatever package you want to pay for a month is not worth it to watch Star Trek Discovery, it doesn't matter if there's nothing else on there for you. Don't pay it. If there's nothing else for you on CBS All Access and you really want to watch Star Trek Discovery and $7, less than the price of a single movie a month is worth it, then pay it. That's where I am. I'm like, yeah, I'll pay $10 a month so I can watch Star Trek Discovery without commercials. Yeah, that's fine.
You know what's funny? For anybody who's in my position where you haven't jumped on board yet, remember that. Hold on. forgive me, am I misremembering this? When you subscribe, you will be able to watch the whole back catalog all at once?
I'm going to check that for you right now.
Okay,
to see what
because
they're doing.
otherwise...
The answer is yes.
Okay, great. Nicole says
Yeah.
yes. In that case, you don't have to feel bad that you've waited. And in fact, maybe it's worth it to wait until February or March and just be able to watch.
Absolutely.
I'll
Yeah.
pay $7 to watch the whole season. Yeah. But $7 per month, you know. Yeah.
I've never felt personally insulted that CBS put this on CBS All Access. I just have always looked at it as, oh, that's what it costs to watch Star Trek. It costs something, right? It used to be I had to pay $120 a month to DirecTV or $99 in a triple bundle to Comcast to watch it, right? If it was on broadcast. And I really didn't know how much I was paying for any particular thing. I really prefer this. Like, okay, for the occasional ha-ha of watching a Family Ties rerun and Star Trek Discovery, I will pay this much a month. Great. Totally worth it.
It works for me.
Well,
What
maybe
about
not
you,
the
Nicole?
Family Ties.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I also pay the $100 a month to watch Star Trek Discovery, and I mean, I was drawn in based on the first 2 episodes, and I just okay, I'll just pay for a little bit and see if I like it, and I just had me coming back for more, and it has its faults like everything does, but I just like it. I just like it a lot.
I think they've really started to get into the groove of the characters. The characters were a little bit paper cutouts in the early part of the season, and I feel like they're turning that around. They just took a big risk in the mid-season finale that I'm very excited about, and could go horribly wrong, and I might hate it by the end of the next season. I don't know. But it could also be
there
amazing.
are several ways it could go, but yes.
Yeah. It could also go very well, and I'm very excited about it. Yes. Amazon confirmed. They announced it's real. They have acquired the global TV rights to Lord of the Rings, and they intend to produce a multi-season TV series in cooperation with New Line Cinema, the Tolkien Estate, and HarperCollins. The series will explore storylines preceding the Fellowship of the Ring, and they have the right to do a possible spin-off series.
2 questions. The first question is, when we reported on this as rumor last week, one of the parts of the rumor that concerned me the most was that the possibility that after paying, $200 million or whatever, that it wouldn't even include all of the characters. And I'm curious what those restrictions are. I assume that nothing's been reported on that front.
They did not. Amazon did not make any comment on that, so we don't know anything more than we did.
The second thing, and we talked about this last week, was I questioned whether or not anyone had a Lord of the Rings sized hole in their hearts right now. And I understand I understand the play to buy legitimacy, but I don't know that buys quality. And we were talking on the Weird Things podcast earlier, and Justin Robert Young brought up the point that it's like TV is a high-stakes battleground these days. And if it's not better than Game of Thrones, if it's not as good as Game of Thrones, could very easily get very, very forgotten in the wash.
Yeah, and Amazon's fine with that, right? They're making bets. Nicole, what do you think?
I think the challenge here is that the movies have such a certain quality to them, a certain feel to them. The first trilogy had this like very grandiose, epic, it set the bar, right? I feel like for all fantasy series going forward. And it'll be interesting to see if the television series follows that same model or it strikes out on its own, perhaps, makes its own little world. And you're right, it's a high stakes game right now. I mean, premiere television, they have to bring their A game, and we'll see if it works out. I mean, I don't, it'll be interesting to see. Again, preceding, I'm always weird about prequels because I don't know. I feel like prequels have a higher bar even because you have to sort of match.
I don't know if it's a prequel.
I don't know.
They're saying
prequel? I don't know.
Explore storylines preceding the Fellowship of the Ring. That could be Silmarillion stuff. It could be Turin. It could be Galadriel coming from the west. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that it could be. Fair. Some of which would just be great standalone stuff where you're like, you know what, this isn't anybody I know, but this is really interesting, right? Or it could be between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, which would be weird because I don't know of anything worth telling in there. So I'd be curious what they came up with, and that would be that would be harder to
Well,
pull off.
and that brings up the interesting question, like maybe somebody has a pitch for an existing story, and they're like, this would plug in very well to the Lord of the Rings universe. So it would be kind of like what I've been hoping for in the Star Wars side of things, a totally brand new story. But then what an expensive way to go about it, to buy the world, to buy the planet just so that you have a set piece to set your new storylines in.
I mean, that Amazon's got the cash, right? Make the bet. And it's you're going to get a built-in audience, right? Because there are people who love this entire world. And your bet is, all right, we're going to get them. It's a lot, Amazon Prime is a lost leader for shipping anyway. So as long as we get some of them in and hopefully make something like Game of Thrones that pulls in people that didn't know this part of the lore, the thing that gives me the most hope is that they're working with New Line Cinema. So the one thing I loved about The Hobbit is it still felt like Lord of the Rings for the most part, even though I didn't feel it was constructed as well as Lord of the Rings. And so if the look and feel of this is still there, that could be good.
Are they trying to fill the hole that Game of Thrones will leave after it's gone?
I would hate to think that they're thinking in such pedestrian terms, but I wouldn't put it past them.
No, that is not what HBO is trying to fill the hole that Game of Thrones will leave by developing 15 different spin-offs of Game of Thrones.
That's true.
Amazon is trying to grab the people who like Game of Thrones, but honestly, it's Tolkien, so they're trying to grab the people who like Tolkien, who were the people that HBO was trying to grab by doing Game of Thrones. So I don't think they're trying to fill a hole so much as saying, well, we know there's a group out there that like these kinds of stories. Let's go for it.
I'm excited. I love fantasy.
First trailer is out for Dark on Netflix, a German series about families in 1986 caught in a time-bending sort of mystery situation. It arrives worldwide December 1st. It looks a lot like Stranger Things, but it's in German.
Is that I did not watch the trailer. Did you like it?
Oh, shoot. You should totally. Yeah. Well, we really can't talk about it if you don't watch the trailer. I'll be honest, because it's weird and it's almost hard to describe.
Well, and
so
to be
all
honest,
I can say is my feelings, which was part of it. I was like, oh, that's got a Stranger Things vibe. And then part of it, I was like, I don't know what that is. It's definitely not trying to be Stranger Things. It's trying to be something weirder and German.
Well, and I guess that's the weird part is the moment I read the pitch, it was a conscious decision of like, I'm going to Jeff Kanata this. I'm just not even going to watch the preview because I'm already sold. I'm already pre-sold, right?
Yeah. Nicole, did you get a chance to see it?
No, I haven't seen the trailer either.
All right.
But it looks
Future
cool.
Man, also coming to Hulu on November 14th. This is kind of a Last Starfighter-esque comedy. We have played the trailer as the cold open a few weeks ago with the guy saying, no, that's the plot of Last Starfighter.
Yeah.
So that's coming out on November 14th. That's tomorrow as we're recording this. Could be today if you're watching it on Tuesday.
Awesome.
Let's talk about what we're watching, starting with you, Nicole. What you been looking at?
Well, I've been pretty busy, but the two shows that I have been catching up with have been Star Trek Discovery, as we've mentioned, and we're kind of slow watching Stranger Things. We're not binging it, so I've been watching it sort of slowly. Those are the two shows that we've been keeping up with, and that's it. But yeah. And I have to say, Star Trek Discovery, I've been trying to come to terms with why I like it despite its flaws, and it's really has to do with the feel of the show, the substance of the show, the characters that I've grown to really like the development of the character. Even though, again, like I understand why some people have problems with some of them, and I understand what people say about plot and all of that. I totally get it, but I also feel like I don't have to defend why I like a show because I just like it. So.
All right, Brian, what have you been looking at?
Of course, the usual suspects. We'll talk about Mr. Robot. We'll talk about Firefly, but watched a couple of movies. Brant Hughes, editor for Modern Rogue, was commenting randomly that School of Rock really holds up, and damned if he's not 100% right. First time I saw that movie was in 2003 when it came out. I had not yet had our first daughter. She's now 13. And the second time I watched the movie was with my 13-year-old, my 10-year-old, and my 4-year-old. And my 10-year-old really loves the idea of being a pop star, and she goes to this band camp where you actually make a rock band and have to lug your instruments around and all that stuff. And I sat her down, and it was like I force fed it to her. I was like, look, this is non-negotiable. You have to watch. You'll probably hate it. It doesn't matter. You're going to watch the whole thing. And of course, within 5 minutes, they were loving it. And for me, the most exciting part was when I first saw it, it was clearly an adult movie that had a bunch of kids in the background. But now I got to see it as a kids movie that has a couple of adults talking throughout the front. It felt like the Bad News Bears, any of those precious memories from childhood. And the other movie I watched was What We Do in the Shadows by the same director as Thor Ragnarok, and it's free right now on Amazon Prime. Just go in not knowing a damn thing, and you're going to have the best time. You're just going to love it, love it, love it. If you liked Flight of the Conchords, if you liked Jermaine Clement, if you liked Thor Ragnarok, just open up Amazon Prime, because I know you have it, because we all have it, and watch What We Do in the Shadows.
All right. I got in finally and watched the second episode of Mindhunter, which is fantastic. It's just trying to find times to fit it in, because Eileen wants to watch it with me, but she's not always in the mood, because she's like, that's kind of heavy, kind of intense.
Right.
But loved it. Still loved the second episode there. I've been keeping up. Orville's kind of the thing I can just put on and not have to pay close attention to and have a good time with. And in that same vein, Friday night, I think it was, Eileen and I were just looking at HBO to be like, let's just put a movie on, something we don't have to pay close attention to, but it'll entertain us, and we can be doing a little bit of work. And we saw the original The Fast and the Furious was on HBO now. So we're like, we've been meaning to watch this for a while. Screw it, let's do it. I ended up enjoying it for all the wrong reasons, because I'm like, is that a compact laptop that he's using to, manage his, look at what kinds of cell phones they have. That guy's got a flip phone. Is that a StarTech? No, it's not. It's too advanced for a StarTech. It's a little smaller. Like, I'm just looking at all the period aspects of the thing. And the fact that, it's a really young Vin Diesel and all of that stuff. The car chases were, I don't like car chases, but they all had something else going on with the plot in them. So they didn't bore me as much as some might. It does not necessarily hold up, I wouldn't say, but we had fun watching it.
Does it feel super dated from the technological side of things?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Car people are going to look at it and be like, oh, the cars are so dated. And tech people are going to look at it and go, oh, the tech's so dated.
Here people are going to be
from
like,
Los Angeles are going to look at it and go, all those buildings are gone. Like, yeah. It's,
Oh, no.
So anyway, that's one of the things I watch. Also continuing to watch Outlander, Mr. Robot, Firefly, all of that. Let's check in with Bryce to find out what he's been on the lookout for.
Hey guys, we got an email from Craig Connolly. He wanted to recommend a show, which is what the segment's for. He writes, "Hey Tom, Brian, and Bryce, I love the show. I would like to submit a show for On the Lookout. I have been watching Dark Matter on Netflix. It's a sci-fi show based in space. It kind of reminds me of The Expanse. Anyway, check it out. I think you'll like it." Craig Connolly. Thank you, Craig. Yeah, I watched the first episode of this. This is like so it's a sci-fi channel show about these 6 people who wake up on a ship with no memories, but they have that thing where I do know how to work this computer. I know how to use swords, and they're trying to piece together why they are brought together and what the purpose of their ship is, and it's definitely cheesy and corny. I found myself laughing at its attempts to be very heavy, just because it was like a little corny. It was just pretty corny. I also couldn't. So I was watching. I'm watching the first episode, and they've got the consoles that they're working on, and I go to the Reddit to look up some more information about the show, and the very top, most recent post on the Reddit from today was someone noticing the exact same thing that I did, which is that their panels are populated with very popular and common music controllers, like DJ hardware and stuff.
Those MIDI boards where you program different buttons for different sounds.
Like one of them very prominently in the first episode is a Novation Launchpad, which is incredibly common, and it's just this array of buttons. And it was just kind of fun and a cheesy little sci-fi show.
This is like in Star Wars: A New Hope, the Death Star. That's just a straight up switcher. That they even grabbed.
I can't remember
Vader.
the brand, but I've had several people go like, "Oh, Grass Valley" or whatever it is. Yeah.
And in that Reddit post, people were like, "Oh yeah, I've seen this joystick in parts of the show. I've seen this other common thing." It's a funny. I don't know. That's a funny little Easter egg game. But that's Dark Matter. Thank you, Craig, for suggesting that. All 3 seasons of it are now on Netflix. It got canceled, unfortunately, so I don't know if it ended in a good way or not. And you can also buy it on most VOD stores. So check it out, Dark Matter.
If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. Now, someday on the show, we'll be saying the television series or movie based on the book Bavaria is coming, and you don't want to be caught being one of those people who hasn't read it. So go out and pick up a copy of Bavaria by me right now.
Tom, it sounds like you're saying you wrote a book.
Oh, yeah. No. I definitely wrote this book. That is true. And you can read it. You can find it at TomMerrittBooks.com. You can find it on Amazon. It's a sci-fi story about a colony ship that has an accident. It's underpowered. Half the people on the ship don't remember they're on a ship. The scientists and the military people who run the ship are revered in a religious way as a way to stop religious wars from happening. If this all sounds interesting, go pick it up.
It's already out. I would have thought we would have spent like 5 years pre-ordering, but that's great.
No, yeah, you could be reading it right now. Some of you are.
Some of you are weird, and you read books while listening to Cordkillers, and we love you for it, you freaks.
TomMerrittBooks.com. The book is called Bavaria. And hey, I know a bunch of you have picked it up because you told me so on Twitter, and you liked it, and you guys are great. I'm so glad you're enjoying the story. If you guys could go review it on Amazon, that would help as well. Thank you for that. Let's check out the front lines.
It's November.
It's November. It's cold on the front.
Netflix is launching its first comic book, not a comic book show, an actual comic book. This is the first one it's launched since acquiring Miller World. The comic is called The Magic Order. It's written by Miller with art by Olivier Coipel, who has also done art for Thor and the Avengers, among other things. Someone is targeting a family of magicians. So, yeah, we don't usually talk about books, but now we've done it twice in a row on the show because this is Netflix, starting a comic book. Obviously, the idea is to eventually get this popular and turn it into a Netflix show, I would assume. But they're starting with the traditional publication of the book.
You know what? I don't want to reduce the art form of comics to something so crass as this. But if you are a hard-nosed producer of video content, it seems like comic books might be a very inexpensive way to sort of pre-pilot stuff out there, right? Essentially, in many ways, a comic book is basically a script with a storyboard, which are two things you're going to have anyway when you make any kind of long-form narrative content. I wonder if this is all part of a long game for content aggregation. To feed into
absolutely. I would assume so, yeah. Nicole, what do you think?
It's very surprising to me, and I am, I would say, cautiously optimistic because I feel like, if one company does TV shows really well, that doesn't mean they're going to do comics very well. You know what I'm saying?
Miller World does comics really well, and Netflix owns Miller World, so they're letting the people who are good at it do it.
True. That is true. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
I'm trying to sort of hedge my bets a little bit. But yeah.
Meanwhile, Hulu became the first video service for U.S. owners of the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo has said it intends to add Netflix and other streaming services to the device. Man, I have not talked to a single person who has a Switch who does not capital LOVE it. It just seems... Is it?
It's great. I love it. I love it.
I sat down and installed Hulu on my Switch thinking... this is, I've got Wii U in my head, right? I'm like, it's probably going to be okay, but it's not going to be great. I'm not going to want to watch Hulu. It's great. It's the mobile interface. Exactly. I could watch my live TV. I could watch everything. The screen on the Switch is great. I'm getting so choked up. It was so good. I told myself I wouldn't do this. it shocked me how like, oh, I could definitely see myself doing this. So
this is Nintendo's year. Like I am with all the at least 2 Game of the Years at least, and then Hulu, and then I mean it is amazing on how Nintendo has like really reinvented it. In a way this year, and I love the Switch as well. I love the games, the titles on it, and amazing, great.
Sometimes
great job.
Nintendo goes down underground for a while, but they'll always find a way to pop back up.
I see what you did there.
With the
Ad Age reports Amazon is developing a free ad-supported version of its Prime Video service. Ad Age says Amazon is considering giving content creators their own channels in the free service and sharing ad revenue in exchange for a set amount of content per week. So not so much like YouTube, more like what they do with Stars, except for free. So maybe somebody could do like a broadcast network on Amazon?
Yeah, this
Weird.
is a tough one because I understand this is specifically just for Amazon Prime Video, which is different than the full Amazon Prime
Well, and they're
service.
making new deals, so not everything that's on the Amazon Prime service would be able to be ad-supported. I'm curious how much of their own stuff that they have control of they would move over there.
This smells to me like somebody somewhere needs to show growth numbers and is entertaining ideas to make sure that they can show growth numbers, whether it's for reals or not.
Interesting.
Doesn't some of the Prime Video already have ads? Like we've talked about this before, where
But they're
it
ads
has
for other Prime
Amazon.
stuff. Like,
Yeah.
But
I
that
have a
sounds
big
like they have the
problem
tech.
with people calling promos ads. I get it.
Yeah.
It's sometimes annoying because you just want to get to the content. But Amazon showing me a preview of The Man in the High Castle before Transparent is not the same as showing me an ad for Clorox.
yeah.
Sure, but at least
it's almost-
the tech is there.
Yeah, but that's different. This is like a service where everything would be ad. This would be similar to what Roku's doing.
Gotcha.
But I guess you're right. I mean, they've got an ad serving system that they could hijack. There's a lot of different things you have to put into the service of a third party ad that you don't have to put if you're running your own in-house promos, though.
Good point.
So this is one. This is good news, question mark. Dish Network lost fewer than expected video subscribers in Q3 thanks to Sling TV. The company had to write off 145,000 subscribers fees because of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. This brought the overall pay TV subscribers down 129,000 on the quarter, but the company says it added 16,000 subscribers in mainland U.S. Dish didn't report Sling TV subscribers separately, but analysts at Evercore estimate that Dish added between 224 and 226,000 Sling TV subs. They lost one today, I can report, because I looked at my credit card and realized I was still paying for Sling TV. And it was very easy. Wait, did you
They
cancel
lost 2 today.
You
because I
canceled?
did exactly the same thing.
What?
Wow.
What? What?
Wow.
That's so weird.
What?
Wow.
Great minds.
I know.
Wow.
No, I mean, I looked at my credit card statement. I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't need to be testing this anymore. We know what's on there.
To their credit, the cancellation was very simple, and they gave me the opportunity. The last question they asked was like, "How likely are you to come back?" And I was like, "Pretty likely." And they were like, "Well, we'll see you later then." And they were super cool about the whole thing.
I thought this was a great story because what would have been a quarter where Dish says, well, we lost a lot of subscribers, but it really had a lot to do with the fact that we have a lot of subscribers in Puerto Rico, and you know that things are not normal there right now. We hope to get those subscribers back. Instead, they're like, actually, we didn't lose that many because we have this weird streaming service over there, at least until Brian and Tom start getting Apple said it's making a show with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon about the morning television show industry. This is the second big name show that Apple has acquired recently, the first being Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories. Apple has not announced how it plans to make these shows available yet, though.
Man, that could be really, really funny, really, really clever. Unfortunately, I just don't have the track record with Apple on their originals that makes me instantly excited about this. It makes me cautiously optimistic.
Their originals have been gimmicky or good documentaries, but they really haven't done this kind of show. We have no idea. But honestly, I mean, Netflix was bidding on this show, according to Recode. So my guess is it's going to be just like anything that would appear on Netflix or Amazon. It's going to have nothing to do. It's going to have less to do with Apple than it does with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon.
HBO launched a show on the app Mosaic for Apple TV and iOS, which lets viewers decide the viewing order and perspective of a 7.5-hour murder mystery miniseries from Steven Soderbergh, starring Sharon Stone. The information doesn't change as far as you progress, only the perspective and what you see. HBO will air its own linear cut of the series on January 22nd. Mosaic is made by PodOp with HBO funding. Tom? This may surprise you. I think this is an awful, awful idea, and I hate everything about it. This sounds like Night Trap on the Sega Genesis CD from back in the day. It was your job to pick the right scene, and so is constantly just switching around, feeling like, well, maybe there's something better than that. Like I want somebody more talented than me to not give me a job.
I haven't tried it yet, so you may be absolutely right. But everything I read sounded like Steven Soderbergh was not trying to do that. He was saying, look, we're not making a video game here. We're not trying to make you guess the right thing. What we're doing is giving you the same story with basically the same information from a different perspective. So if you watch the story and say, but I'd actually like to know what the suspect is thinking right now, you can go that route. And then you can go back if you want and get the perspective of the other one. Some movies do that. Or you can just keep going. And, of course, if you're like, I don't want to make any decisions at all, there'll be a linear cut for you as well. I think it's fascinating. I think it could be better than you think, where you're like, oh, I'm curious what this person thinks. I think that's the key is we're not trying to make you guess. It's not choose your own adventure. It's just a different way. It's just more story if you want it and a different way of looking at the same story.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping that'll.
I personally love the idea, and I think it's because I like books that follow this way of telling stories where they shift character to character and they're telling the same story, but they're telling it from different characters' point of view, and it gives you dimension and perspective, and it fleshes out the story a lot more. And I would love following one character's story and then going back and following, the B character story and following, sort of see whether that lines up with the first character story. Like I'm actually very interested.
Yeah. I tell you a movie I would want this for is Memento. I would want to be able to afterwards just choose to go through it from a different direction. That's the kind of movie where you have to see it the linear cut first, but then I'd like that to be a thing you could unlock. Like, okay, now see it in chronological order. Now see it from one of his friends' perspective. Like, I think that would be really interesting. All right, let's check out some dispatches from the front. The Last Tim. Actually, his name's Tim Last, wrote in and said, been an avid listener to your show since the Twit days. Louis C.K. recently was accused of sexual misconduct by 5 women. Despite not being found guilty, HBO quickly removed his content from their online streaming service. Now, Louis C.K. has admitted to some of this. While convenience might trump fidelity, I would say owning a physical copy easily trumps the whims of a streaming service. With the current culture, I have a feeling a lot more content might be pulled from online services before this black cloud over Hollywood has ended. At least I know that whatever I own is safe, no matter what the actor or actress has done in their private life. What are your thoughts?
I'll tell you what, I was talking to Bonnie last night about this. Like, she was really bummed. Like, she loves the song Zippity Doo-Dah, but good luck finding Song of the South streaming anywhere, including on Disney's upcoming service. That's a really interesting idea because convenience does trump fidelity, but if the convenience is zero because they're trying to not make something available to you, then that does sort of trump that whole discussion, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's an interesting difference in perception, not just from the owner's side, but from the broadcaster's side. If I'm a store and I'm selling someone's stuff, there's not an implied endorsement usually, unless it's a really bad thing, right? But generally the store is like, look, as long as it's not illegal, we'll sell it, right? Whereas if you're streaming it, there's an implied curation. There's an implied, we think this is really good and you should watch it.
Yeah, I agree. Because there is that implication of curation in every streaming service.
Yeah.
I also want to say, well, Louis is like was it Hulu? It's Hulu distributed, right?
I believe
Am I-
so.
Well, he's
Okay.
on
No, no.
multiple things. He's got some Netflix specials and he's got some HBO specials.
Right, HBO special. Sorry, I was mistaken. But I think that's a little different from the store owner analogy, just because the store owner isn't like paying money to make the shows. In some way, I'm trying to say it in a very weird way.
No, that's what we're
But,
saying, right? Because he's saying I would rather own it because
right.
then there's no controversy.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, but also, I don't know. I feel very mixed feelings about this because I do feel bad about the whole thing, but I also don't think. I think it's entirely within their rights to remove it. I think they should, but I also understand what he's saying about missing certain films and movies that you no longer have access to because they.
Well, and his point, goes beyond Hollywood controversies. When you're relying on a streaming service, that stuff may not stay there for all kinds of reasons. They might lose the rights to it. It might become wildly unpopular suddenly, and you're the only person who still likes it. And they're like, it's just not worth keeping in the catalog. Streaming services definitely not the place to lean on if you were like, I always want access to this.
We got this email that says, your boss, Roy Hobbs, normally from rainy Seattle, but checking in from sunny Bora Bora while on vacation. Just wanted to let you know that using the hack you two talked about on a previous show, I have downloaded the first 8 episodes of Star Trek Discovery on Netflix because he's traveling internationally, which I will happily binge for free when I get home. You guys did a good job. Take the rest of the week off. I would like to point out in this gray market situation, we didn't necessarily advocate for one thing or another. It just occurred to us that we wondered what that murky ethical territory looked like.
What he's doing is absolutely legal. While he's in Bora Bora, and he is a paying Netflix customer, which I'm assuming, he can download those, and I think it's like he's got 48 hours to watch them. So if he wants to download them at the very end of his trip and doesn't watch them on the flight and gets back home, he still has the rights to watch them. It's not ideal. Netflix really wouldn't like you to watch them once you're back in the United States, but he didn't do anything wrong there. Keep in mind, if you turn on your internet, they might come in and deauthorize them, so be careful there.
Yeah, and by the way, there's the ethical thing. There is no ethical issue. The only question is whether or not it violates the terms of service as they're written. I mean,
no, it's the opposite, actually. It absolutely does not violate the terms of service for him to do this. Ethically, maybe it does, because...
Well, but even then, ethically, I would say ethically, only insofar as the question is, does your gut say that you're violating the terms of service, not that you're doing something morally wrong?
Because the terms say if you're international, you get to download them and you have 48 hours to watch them.
That's true.
Yeah. Hey, Paul from Dayton wrote in and said, I'm a bit behind on the shows, but I wanted to comment on items discussed. First, the availability of the DC Comics-based shows on the CW, I believe mentioned by Bryce. As of writing, all of these shows, along with iZombie and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., are on Netflix. Granted, you have to wait some time after the season is over, anywhere from a few weeks to a month or so, but all episodes in the previous seasons are available. We actually covered it when they did this announcement. CW pulled all their current shows from Hulu and made their previous seasons available the day the new season starts. So you won't be able to watch CW current season shows on Netflix, but Netflix does have the right to the back catalog of the CW shows.
Meanwhile, Joshua from Lynchburg, Virginia writes, hey, Tom, Brian, and guests. I was very intrigued by the Movie Pass idea and ordered one within the first few days of the price drop. I'm not a very active moviegoer before a Movie Pass. I could only justify the $12 ticket price about twice a year. Now I see a movie almost every week, but I buy tickets almost every day, ... My local theater is run by Regal Cinemas, and they have an awards program called Regal Crown Club. Yeah. Every dollar spent is the equivalent of 100 points, and after buying tickets 20 times in a year, you get an extra 1,000 points per visit. My office is connected to our town's mall where the movie theater is located. Almost every day on my lunch break, I'll walk over to Regal's kiosk and buy a ticket to a movie I'm not interested in seeing purely to bank the reward points. As you can imagine, I've accumulated points very rapidly. These points can be used for concessions, merch, or movie tickets. I'm not sure that many people are using MoviePass like this, but at least 3 or 4 within my office alone are. He says, I'm to blame. Without MoviePass partnering with theaters to record when tickets are actually being used, it will be hard to prevent people like me from taking them up on the offer to buy a ticket a day. My $10 a month is costing MoviePass upwards of $200 and is fully paying for my concessions every week. Thanks for all the podcasts you both do. I've enjoyed listening to Tom's insights since BOL and more recently getting to know Brian. Thank you so much, Joshua. Here's the weird part. I don't even know by the numbers that MoviePass is coming out the loser on this because they get to track engagement, and he is certainly demonstrating a level of involvement that...
Yeah, but he's not buying movies he wants to see.
Sure, but he's showing up every single day, deepening his relationship with MoviePass. And as somebody who runs, a small online shop myself, those are the kind of people that all you want to do is change the incentives and keep that energy going. And you're glad to have them in your ecosystem.
It's certainly not the kind of thing that if it became widespread that MoviePass would be able to let keep happening, because they'll just go out of business, right? They'll lose too much money. But what MoviePass wants to do is partner up with cinemas on their loyalty programs, and so this could be a great source of data for them in pitching Regal to say, hey, look what your loyalty program and our MoviePass program did for this guy. How can we take advantage of that? What do we have to tweak to make it so that we don't lose money on the guy, but that he keeps up this behavior? And I think that's an interesting.
And by the way, for the record, I have no moral issue with this at all. This is straight up extreme couponing in my book. This is you set up your scheme.
Yeah. It only becomes a problem when MoviePass says you can't do it anymore.
Right.
But if it's within the rules of what MoviePass is doing, then, yeah. John Dempsey says, keep this trick quiet, okay? So, Nicole,
everybody
don't tell
be cool. Everybody?
Okay.
Bryce, you cool?
I'm cool.
All right. I subscribe to Netflix disc service. I get 2 Blu-rays at a time. I put them in my optical drive and use Vudu's disc-to-digital service. Oh, you're totally breaking the terms of service doing this. This is not okay. This is a email segment full of ethical dilemmas. It says I get an HD copy on Vudu, then with Movies Anywhere, it upgrades it to 4K for free on my Apple TV. This definitely violates Vudu's terms of service. You have to own the disc to take advantage of this service. Granted, that doesn't mean that you can't get away with it for a while, but maybe we shouldn't have said your full name.
But also, whoopsie. Also, you have the weird fact that it's like, on the one hand, it does sound like you're getting away with something, but on the other hand, you're buying the movie. It's like, if
you're buying at a discount, they would not normally sell all of these movies for $4.
Correct. But there's no physical way for him to go nuts and buy thousands of movies all at once. He has to individually get each one and blah, 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 and all that stuff.
But it's like using the UPC codes when we talked about the mobile version of disc to digital.
Right. Correct.
As long as you're in your home and you find a barcode online, that
then you just scan that because all it has is the barcode on there, right?
Yeah.
Which also violates the terms of service.
Yeah. Mike says, oh, that's right. Mike, his other TLDRs, we heard from him during the Patreon segment about getting spoiler in time. He also wanted, number 1, did we watch Orville Season 1, Episode 7, Majority Rule? Hot damn, that was good. Tom, can you verify, was it indeed good?
I don't know them by name.
It's the one with the upvotes where everything's run like Reddit style. Majority Rule.
Oh yeah, it was like a Dark Mirror type episode. Yeah, that was really good. The stories that they've been doing have all been like solid Star Trek quality stories.
That's awesome. And then finally he says, I don't recall if you've ever mentioned Halt and Catch Fire or had it as part of your brackets, but you're doing yourself a disservice. It's good. It stuck the landing. I watched the first 5 or 6 episodes and I liked it quite a bit. And I think that I was intimidated by the length of catching up I had to do, but knowing that it's about to end puts it in the running for our archival.
I watched season 1 and I enjoyed a lot of it, but it was just one of those things that fell to the wayside and I kept meaning to go back. So this would be a good way to make me go back. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Mike's full of good Mike challenges here. I like this. Good stuff. And Nicole Lee is full of good information, and you can find her at Engadget.com, right?
That's right. You're exactly right. Engadget.com.
Anything else you want to tell folks about?
You can just catch me on twitter.com/Nicole. And, holidays are coming. CES is coming. We're all thick in the year-end planning phase. So
yep.
Look
I
out
will
for that.
see you at CES, actually.
Oh, really?
I'm going
There
to
you
make
go.
a DTNS announcement for first on Cordkillers. We will be
Yay.
broadcasting DTNS from CES. We just decided it earlier this afternoon. So
Awesome.
more details to come.
In the meantime, before we wrap up, make sure that if you guys have any questions, comments, your emails have been spectacular lately. Hit us up at cordkillers@gmail.com. And if we don't read it on the air, know that we definitely read them.
Or that you violated our terms of service.
Oh, no.
Thank you, Nicole. Follow her at twitter.com/Nicole. You can find us at cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will kill some more cords with you next week. Join us.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
Unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
Let's go.
it's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.